Hey guys, time to get in on the action for the biggest moments in basketball with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projections, place your entry, and win up to 100 times your money. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit of up to $100. Just download the Prize Picks app and use the code GET100. That's code GET100 on Prize Picks for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more. Pick less. It's that easy.
Plato's Closet in West Ashley and North Charleston are springing up cash. Just sell us your gently used warm weather styles like tees, shorts, sandals, and more. We're paying cash on the spot for gently used spring styles for guys and girls. Support sustainable fashion. This spring, do your thing and recycle the spring-inspired clothes, shoes, and accessories that are just hanging in your closet for cash on the spot. Let your spring clothes bloom into cash at Plato's Closet. Plato's Closet, located in West Ashley on Sam Rittenberg Boulevard and North Charleston on Rivers Avenue.
Oh, and we are back, and it is now April. I just had a great spring break. Tim, you had a great spring break, I hope?
Yeah, I did. The kids, I'm teaching, so the kids went off to do their thing. And so I was left alone to my own devices.
Well,
more dangerous than it sounds, by the way.
Well, we did some traveling, and I had the privilege of going to the opening night of Disney's Tarzan stage musical in Prague, in Czech. And if you think it's weird when apes speak English, it's even weirder when they speak Czech. I'll leave you with that. But that was actually a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun, and it's a beautiful city, and I feel very refreshed. But we have literally one obit today. And what an obit it is.
Man, oh man, oh man. And you know what? I don't know why I was surprised. I wasn't paying a great deal of attention when they announced in February that O.J. Simpson was, in fact, dealing with cancer. That was announced in February. I was
right over my head.
Right over my head. So I did. So I missed it. Thus, the announcement yesterday just came out of nowhere for me, and of course, triggered a whole lot of conversation about a whole lot of things. We can talk about it because O.J. was an actor, so speak. 38 roles there.
Did you hear what David Zucker said about O.J.? It's a very interesting quote.
What did he say? David in those Naked Gun movies, of course.
Those Naked Gun movies. He said, let's see, I'm trying to get the quote exactly right without looking it up. He said, his murdering was a lot like his acting. He got away with it. Oh gosh, how was it? It was something like that. He was like he got away with it, but you weren't fooled, or something like that. It was.
You know what's great about that quote?
Yeah,
just the first part of it.
Yeah,
his murdering was a lot like his acting.
Yes.
Sentence done.
Yeah.
The rest of that is funny, but he's already nailed it. His murdering was a lot like his acting. I'm
inclined to go back to the great Dave Chappelle line, where Dave Chappelle has that great bit where he talks about the 5 times that he met O.J. Simpson, and it's all seeded through the whole show. It's just absolutely brilliant comedic structure. And at one point, JJ walks in and shakes his hand, and he's with a bunch of his his reps and his agents, and this one lady says, "How could you even shake the hand of that murderer?" And Chappelle looks at her and he says, "With all due respect, that murderer ran for over 2,000 yards." Right. And so, but what's great about all of these jokes is that they're all going to the same place, which is that they're underlining the ambivalence and the conflict of how do we deal with somebody who, in point of fact, was found innocent,
Mm-hmm.
But then found guilty in a civil court. But who still
sound. If we're being ridiculously specific, right? Found liable for civil damages. And I know it's a bunch of lawyers listening right now, but even that's a very, very specific thing, right? And I interrupt you. Go on.
Well, we wrestle with these things, and obviously murder is a really, really big thing to wrestle with. It's not like, Roman Polanski, and so, I mean, there are all these other figures who have something dark about them, something that people like. I still fight with people over Woody Allen. They want nothing to do with Woody Allen.
New movie released. Right this week.
Right?
Yeah,
this week.
Today.
My wife is even having a hard time listening to old Cars tunes now because of how Rick Ocasek treated Paulina in his will. He tried to deprive her of anything, and so we get to this place where it's like, how do I acknowledge a historic achievement or a legacy if the person was in any way in their private life or even in their public life, if they did something to damage my opinion of them personally? Can we separate those things? Can you separate the art from the artist, the athlete from the private? I mean, can you do that? And it's a really difficult question. And I think all those jokes are getting to the crux of that dichotomy, which I don't know that people can easily resolve.
Which is unfortunate too, because look, for me, it's very simple. It takes, for one thing, it takes maturity, in order to sort of evaluate these things, one has to engage them as the complicated things that they are, and then cull them apart. Now, this is also true. Whatever the individual answer to the question is, whether or not you want to go out and see that Woody Allen movie, whether or not you want to all that kind of stuff, that's your answer. Where you land on that is the correct answer. Your answer is correct. Whatever it is you want, that's correct. You have not made a mistake. Now, what you don't get to do is decide what anybody else is going to do. That you don't get to do. You don't get to decide whether or not I'm going to watch that Woody Allen movie, which I, by the way, missed for the show, but now they sent me a link, so I'm going to check it out. First movie, all in French. All in French. And obviously, I guess shot in France, but all in French. And look, why Woody's made his last few films elsewhere is because he can't get any money to make them here. Because there's a belief in this town by those who would give him money that there are too many people, that it would be too costly.
Yeah.
In other ways beyond the cost of the movie.
Yeah.
And that's just a belief,
It is completely a belief. I think
it's not actually true. It's not true at all.
It's an erroneous belief. And to bring that back to OJ,
yes,
I still enjoy the Naked Gun movies.
Sure.
And the point I'm making is I don't sit there watching the Naked Gun movies and then OJ comes on and I don't sit there and go like, oh, I'm in the movie. I'm totally absorbed in the movie. Like I don't watch Chaplin films and get all irate about his dalliances and his.
No, he liked the young gals. And, no, that's all just silly. And I really think that the problem in those circumstances really are. I'm just going to have to be brutal with this. It's the immaturity of the people engaged in the medium. But that's the way I feel about that. Not only do OJ was tweeting. I think it's one of the reasons why I didn't know he had cancer. OJ was tweeting about all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Here or texting or whatever we call it recently. And, I got it. OJ's in my feed. I don't really care what OJ thinks about anything, but he is funny. And
very funny. And Dave Chappelle's entire show, I think it was his third Netflix show. The 5 times I met OJ Simpson. I mean, it is a masterpiece. And his impression of OJ is pretty great too. Because he gets the voice kind of that low. But it is really a masterpiece of stand-up comedy, and it is structured entirely around the times that he met OJ. And I think it goes right to the heart of what everyone still struggles with. And I think OJ is he more so than Woody, more so than Polanski, more so than than Harvey Weinstein, than more so than any of them. He is the one who's going to define how we wrestle with these things going down, because you're talking about somebody who made an impact as a performer, as an actor, I mean, look, Capricorn 1, I'm sorry, that is a terrific film.
Oh, I love that movie.
Terrific film.
He's a racist actor in it, but I love that movie.
But he's not bad. He's not bad. He is a convincing presence in it. So he made an impact as a media figure. He made an impact as an athlete. And then, of course, there's the horrible murder and trial, and which is what he will probably be mostly remembered for, at least by this generation. But in time, we'll see how it all shakes out.
Oh, and Fatty Arbuckle, who of course didn't even do the things that he was tried for. But it sort of stuck around. Stuck around forever. I think when I think about OJ, and of course all you and I, we were here. So it was very present. Working as journalists at that particular time. So it was a very, very present thing. I think what people never quite got right back then regarding the black community vis-a-vis OJ is this. The black community didn't really think a whole lot about O.J. Simpson. He didn't hold the stature in the community that, say, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Jim Brown and Muhammad Ali and so on and so forth did. We had reasons for that, things that had to do with O.J., things that O.J. said about his relationship to the black community. He famously said, "I'm not black, I'm O.J." And this shaped it. Michael Jordan had a moment like that too later on. Yeah. Tiger Woods had a moment like that later on. So the black community, we crafted very particular relationships with these black folks who decided that they wanted to have a very particular relationship with their black heritage, right? So OJ, all of that goes down. OJ goes to trial, gets acquitted. There were all kinds of things that happened in that trial that black folks felt were happening because OJ was black. Yep. We all know what these things were. Now, this is where we came down. OJ is plainly guilty as hell. If you ask 90, most black folks are not walking around saying OJ didn't do it. That was, no, we're not crazy. He's guilty as hell. But the forces arrayed to convict him use race.
Yes,
we felt, and then the question became, yes, but a person with two people were actually killed. Black people then say this: have you ever heard of anything called strange fruit? Because we all know what that means, and nobody has ever been held to account for any of that. So we think we can handle this. If you can handle that. And that complicated sort of evaluation of all of this is really what you have to go through to get to where you get on the OJ thing. It's really just not a simple, black people want to let OJ off. No, black people ain't thinking about OJ. Black people are thinking about 400 years of black people. Yeah. That's what we were thinking about. And so that's my big treatise on that.
It's interesting because what you're talking about is something that I think will take many, many more years to have perspective on. I think it's going to take another generation that doesn't have the memory of this in its DNA, that can stand there and look back with scholarly hindsight. Well put. And say, let's evaluate all these different, because this is a moment where a lot of different factors and forces and ideas and histories all kind of collide in this moment, many of which don't have anything to do with this moment, but yet they do. Mm. And they're roped in. And, the bookends are not there yet, but it's all very interesting. Yep. Well, let's get into some DVDs and Blu-rays and 4Ks and all that fun stuff. I'm going to go through the Warner Archive stuff right now, which I finally had a chance to over the rest of the spring break to delve into a whole bunch of Hanna-Barbera goodness here. Some of it better than others, obviously. So these are all Blu-rays. And all Hanna-Barbera stuff, classic Hanna-Barbera characters given the feature film treatment here. The Good, the Bad, and Huckleberry Hound from the Warner Archive collection is really, I had seen this when I was a kid. It is so fascinating to watch it again. It's a good little 90-minute Huckleberry Hound Western, which would probably be better at about 40 minutes, to be honest. It's the jokes in most of these things, they work in small doses, right? They're like Rodney Dangerfield routines. It's like a zinger, and then you pause and you kind of, reset, and then there's another zinger and you pause and you reset. And when you start stretching this stuff out, it's a little tougher. A lot of the other characters show up here, Quick Draw McGraw and Yogi Bear. I mean, they throw everybody in because you can't really sustain 90 minutes with just Huckleberry Hound. Mm-hmm. I can't believe I already spent more than a minute on Huckleberry Hound. Then we got Top Cat and the Beverly Hills Cats. This is like the Aristocats, except not. This one's okay. I was never a big, huge fan of Top Cat, but it's cute, and this one's also probably overlong at 92 minutes. But the whole Beverly Hills thing is a little bit amusing. Then we get the Jetsons meet the Flintstones, which I have always been hugely fond of, because why not? Like, yeah,
that was almost fantastical when I was a kid and I saw it the first time. It was like breaking some sort of reality for me. Yeah. I was like, wait.
And it's a stretch. I mean, it really is a stretch as how they make it happen. This Elroy's little machine malfunctions, and somehow they use that to justify the bringing of the two families together. But it's really fun. They really work the whole fish out of water thing very, very well. And I think it's sharp. I think it's just it's a nice little relic of its age. We also have Rockin' with Judy Jetson.
Yeah, I love that. That was so
yeah, right. Not bad at all. Rockin' with Judy Jetson was a lot of fun. It was Judy's chance to shine for a change, and I think they realized that the audience for this really was very much Judy's audience. Yeah, this one's fun. The songs are terrific. I mean, they're ridiculous, but they're funny. Surfing in Space? Are you kidding me? Great, love that. Got a bunch of Scooby-Doos here, none of which I think are any good. I think the Scooby-Doo movie concept is just really, really worn out. I don't think it works at all in a movie concept. But if you're a fan, they've got Scooby-Doo and the Ghoul School, Scooby-Doo and the Reluctant Werewolf, and Scooby-Doo meets the Boo Brothers. The Scooby-Doo meets the Boob Brothers is maybe the only one of these that I kind of sort of think is okay. Just because you get some relief from Scooby and Scrappy and Shaggy with these weird, kind of Three Stooges as ghosts, Freako, Streako, and Miko. They're not that funny, but it's something different. It's at least kind of a new thing. But I'm not fond of the whole Scrappy-Doo thing. That never really worked for me. And then lastly, a trio of Yogi movies, Yogi Bear and the Magical Flight of the Spruce Goose. Who thought of combining Yogi Bear with the Spruce Goose?
Howard Hughes, and I don't know. Those things don't go
so
together
bizarre.
In any way, shape, or form.
They throw a bunch of others in here, Snagglepuss and Quick Draw McGraw and Huckleberry Hound are all thrown in here as well. It kind of doesn't really make any sense. Augie Doggy, yeah, I don't know. It's the Spruce Goose is what throws me. Yogi's Great Escape is okay. That one's all right. That's kind of more tame in its aspirations. It's still dragged out a little bit. You still have Snagglepuss and Quick Draw McGraw showing up to save the day, but it's all right. And then the one that completely doesn't work at all is Yogi and the Invasion of the Space Bears. This is just a stretch like nobody's business. I don't know. Maybe there are some kids out there that would get into this. This just feels like they felt like they had to do something. They did this in 1973. I don't know who thought this was a good idea. Maybe it was a Jetsons hangover. I don't know, but it really it's a bit much. It's a bit much. So there's all of that. And then some other Warner Archive stuff. Let's get into some better, more real stuff. The Prince and the Pauper with Errol Flynn.
Oh, yes.
Did you ever read the book when you were a kid?
Oh yeah.
See, I didn't read the book until after I had seen this movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I kind of prefer the movie, to be honest.
Oh, interesting.
I love Mark Twain, but that's the one Mark Twain that goes outside the culture, right? Mark Twain was very much more about, like Huckleberry Finn, Tom, all that stuff.
Midwest to West.
The American milieu. And Prince of the Pauper, I felt like his inability to kind of wrap himself around the European, the medieval English culture of it. I think they kind of got that right in the movie in ways that I didn't think Mark Twain necessarily got it. But look, Claude Rains is in here, Errol Flynn's in here. It's a terrific movie. Bill Keighley directed it for Warner Brothers in 1937. Warner Brothers' 30s heyday.
Yeah,
it's a terrific film. It's a terrific film. Really, really fun. Then we also have Joe's Apartment. Dude, I never got this.
Well, that was the MTV series, right?
Yeah, and they did a movie of it, and in 1996.
Oh yeah,
right. It was an MTV short originally, and it should have stayed a short. That
movie with Jerry O'Connell and the cockroaches and the Well, that was one of those moments where that new technology, which had first showed up in commercials, if I'm not mistaken, like Raid or whatever it was. They get to new technology, and then they just got to take that new technology and figure out a way to jam it into a movie. And they did it with this movie, making those cockroaches talk.
Yeah, it's just too weird. And it should have stayed a short. John Payson, who wrote and directed it and did the original short, I don't know, did he ever have more of a feature career? Did he go on to do anything else, or did that kind of tank his whole deal?
Back in the day, he was one of those liquid television guys.
Oh, that's right.
Doing all that kind of stuff. So, he was one of those producer kind of guys. But yeah.
So speaking of Rodney Dangerfield, the animated film Rover Dangerfield, which was basically Rodney Dangerfield deciding he's just going to do a dog character that's Rodney. Boy, this is just an odd movie. I remember that movie, early 90s, right? Yeah, this was like right about the time you and I met. This was in theaters. It was that rated G of all things, like Rodney Dangerfield rated G, did all those R-rated things.
Harold Ramis was, I think maybe he was a writer. I think it was great.
Story was developed by Rodney Dangerfield and Harold Ramis, and then Rodney wrote the screenplay. So it's entirely he co-wrote the songs, he produced it, he did the character. I mean, this is a full Rodney Dangerfield deal. And it's really, I still don't know quite what to make of it. A lot of it's funny, but it is a rated G thing. You do feel like he's pulling his punches sometimes just to make it a family-friendly thing.
Yeah, look, it's Rodney Dangerfield. This should be closer. This should have been closer to Ralph Bakshi. Maybe
there you go. Right.
But no, it's like this. What's going on? This is very odd. Very odd.
Yeah. Then we've also got the Marx Brothers, A Day at the Races. This is available in a boxed set as well, but it's nice to have it as a standalone. I kind of feel like if you're going to go Marx Brothers, you got to get all of them, because it's like potato chips. You watch one, you want to watch the rest of them.
Yeah.
And they're pretty short, brisk movies, but A Day at the Races is a whole lot of fun. I don't really know what else to say about it. It's Sam Wood and letting them go completely nuts and do all their vaudeville shtick. But by the way, who their agent was? I just found this out the other day. The Marx Brothers, their agent was their mom.
Oh, really? I had no idea.
Man, and she's the one who taught Harpo to play the harp.
Now I had no idea. Yeah. No, that's fantastic.
She was the harpist. Their parents were performers, but she was the harpist, and there you go.
I think of them as going back to at least vaudeville, right?
Yeah.
The actual, when they were really, really young, they would have been vaudeville guys. So wow, that's fantastic.
Crazy, right? Wonderful, terrific noir. They Drive by Night. Raoul Walsh. Humphrey Bogart, George Raft, and then Ann Sheridan, Ida Lupino holding it down for the ladies. This is just a terrific film. It's kind of an unusual noir because it's more kind of Western and rustic and a little dusty, but it's still, it's still got the structure of noir, the feel of noir, the style of noir. So it's a really interesting film from its day.
Yeah.
And George Raft is, great. Humphrey Bogart is just beyond belief good. Really.
Perfectly cast, those two. Yeah, of course they're brothers. They even look alike. Yeah. They should have, fantastic.
Yeah. And it's, Ida Lupino has like a scene in here that basically made her a superstar. I mean, it was one moment in one scene in this film that just pushed her right over the edge, and it was all done. Yeah. How do we feel about Green Lantern now? And this is the extended cut, by the way. They went back and extended it by like 9 minutes, and it doesn't make it better.
The Ryan Reynolds film, the 2011 film. I feel like it's still bad. And look, he's one of those actors who they mean whoever you want it to be, gave 3 or 4 opportunities at the superhero cloak. He blew this one. Yeah. Or he did not work in this, and then boom, 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 Suicide Squad. Yeah. And way back in the day, I think Ben Affleck had a couple of shots by it. I think Ben Affleck was Daredevil before.
He was Daredevil for sure before he was Batman.
Before he was Batman. So and then after that, they just sort of tapped out on Green Lantern. Now, that I always wanted the Green Lantern to be our brother John. And I still think that there should be a Green Lantern featuring that guy. For one thing, he's my generation's Green Lantern. And we had two. We had the Green Lantern from the late 60s, 70s. And then we had John, who I think was like 80s or something like that, maybe?
80s, definitely the 80s. Yeah. And he was more the average guy who gets pulled into being a Green Lantern, which was kind of a progression. If you go back to the Justice Society Green Lantern, right, the guy with the cape and the whole kind of Doctor Strange looking outfit. When you go from him to the Justice League Green Lantern, what they're trying to do is sort of, forge something that is a little bit different from other superheroes. That these are guys who have who are given a calling as opposed to who are just given powers. Like without that ring, he doesn't do anything. Yeah. So it is a little bit of a different dynamic, and you do want some, like take the ring away. Don't misbehave because the court will take the ring away. Right. It's sort of like you have had this calling presented to you as opposed to, powers that are permanently there that you got to figure out how to use. So it's a different thing. And I don't think this movie ever really captured that very well. I'm surprised because Greg Berlanti co-wrote it and produced it. And, he did so well with the Arrowverse on television. You would have thought that he could have brought some of that to this movie, but he didn't. I'm still not quite sure why. But anyway. All right. Harry Beaumont's Faithless with Tallulah Bankhead and Robert Montgomery. Kind of a sort of forgotten melodrama. But Tallulah Bankhead is wonderful. If you don't know Tallulah, she was one of the original brassy kind of 30s actresses who always had she was they were all kind of the same. Garbo sort of started it, and then Tallulah Bankhead was part of it. And who else do we have in there? I mean, all those brassy, fast-talking dames.
Carol Lombard, Myrna Loy.
They're all sort of part of the same class. But Tallulah Bankhead really had a great. She had great body language and a great voice. So anyway, she's in the trick here is kind of a Brewster's Millions kind of a deal. She's an heiress, and she has to. It's not like Brewster's Millions in the sense that it's the game, but it is sort of in the same dynamic, the same trajectory. It's the Great Depression, and money and love just can't go together. And there's this hilarious bit of Robert Montgomery, who only earns $20,000 a year, which, if you go back, that's quite an awful lot of money during the Depression. Like $20,000 a year is like good six figures now. So that tells you sort of the conceit of the story. But anyway, it goes to some pretty dark places. It is a really, really fascinating film. It is pre-code. It is just barely pre-code. So it has some pre-code issues where you're like, holy cow, they could do that back then? Yeah, they could talk about that back then. Mm-hmm. It goes to a very ugly little place, but it's a good film. Three Godfathers with John Wayne and Harry Carey Jr., John Ford and Marion C. Cooper working together here. Nice little Technicolor late 40s film Western. Does it hold up? You think this holds up?
Yeah, actually, it particularly holds up in the way that it's a framework that allows itself to be repeated again and again and again and again, which it has, which it has. So I think the framework, the sort of underlying thing, holds together. They got a baby. These three guys who have absolutely no reason to be anywhere near a baby. Yeah. What was the one in the 80s with Tom Selleck and
Three Men and a Baby?
3 Men and a Baby.
Which is based on 3 Men and a Cradle, the French film.
The French film,
which is in no small way a ripoff of this. So there are two versions of this here. There's the 1936 version, directed by John Ford. And then there is the later version from 1948 with directed by Richard Boleslavsky, who was kind of one of the original method acting pioneers, and whose version is also very interesting. So it is interesting, and you get trailers for both versions, so it's interesting to compare them. But I don't know which one I like better, honestly. I feel like the original John Wayne from 1936 has John Wayne. The later version has Walter Brennan. I don't know. Is Walter Brennan going to substitute for John Wayne for me? Not really. But anyway, the premise is the premise. Make up your own mind. Money Talks. Chris Tucker and Charlie Sheen looking awfully young.
That film was so funny.
Chris Tucker, so skinny, so funny, so unaware of how funny he is. And that's what I think makes this stand out. It's not like the Rush Hour movies where he knows who he is and he knows what he does. He knows his shtick.
Yeah, and he's kind of doing bits. This is just insane.
Chris Tucker is so phenomenally funny and naturally funny here.
And
like 19?
Oh yeah, and Charlie's playing a great, sort of Bud Abbott to his Costello-ish sort of dynamic, and Heather Locklear. This movie just cracked me up. It was just hysterically funny.
Well, this is the movie that gave us Brett Ratner. This was his first movie. Yeah. He's out now.
Yeah.
Will he ever direct again? Do you think?
Yeah.
Brett's
directing something right now.
Oh, is he? No,
yeah,
there we go.
He's fine. Here's the thing: Brett Ratner movies are and there was a kind of movie that Brett did, has done. He before he passed away, Jonathan Demme's little Ted Demme. They were all from that same sort of universe of movies, and those kind of movies are not really made anymore. You don't see those sort of cop buddy, wild and crazy, Jackie Chan. That's kind of out. Anyway.
Easter Parade, Irving Berlin's Easter Parade with Judy Garland and Fred Astaire. I don't know what you can say bad about this. I mean, Charles Walters directed it. Arthur Freed produced it. It's Technicolor. It's beautiful. The musical numbers are fantastic. It's like one of those perfect MGM musicals. It's a perfect, wonderful movie. Peter Lawford and Ann Miller show up and give great support. But I mean, it's just absolutely wonderful and co-written no less by the man who created I Dream of Jeannie, Sidney Sheldon.
Sidney Sheldon. Yeah. And Judy Garland, among her best moments, she looks great. She looks healthy and fit. She's vital in the film. Fred Astaire. You look at young Peter Lawford. All of these people just in their prime and just doing good, and it was fantastic. I love it.
And then Ramon Menendez's wonderful, still timeless Stand and Deliver, which earned Edward James Olmos an Oscar nomination. And it's just still such a good movie. We had so many of those inspiring teacher movies, inspiring teachers in urban jungle movies, right? And it starts, Blackboard Jungle is sort of like the original of those, but then it enters a new phase with Stand and Deliver, and then you get Dangerous Minds with Michelle Pfeiffer, and you get what was the one with Morgan Freeman?
Morgan Freeman. What was that one with Morgan Freeman? And then you had
similar deal.
Yeah, you had the one with Freedom Writers. That too. I mean, there's a whole bunch of them, but I still think Stand and Deliver is the best one. It's just so good. Lou Diamond Phillips is so good when he walks into the room and he looks at the board, and with perfect comic timing, he just kind of thinks, and he looks over and he goes, "What's calculus?" One of my favorite lines. And of course, Jaime Escalante, who James, a real guy, a real class, a real situation.
He just died a couple of years ago.
Just a few years ago. So that was really kind of great about it.
Yeah, absolutely terrific. And this, I believe this was originally not even supposed to go to theaters. This almost didn't even become an Oscar contender. This was made for PBS first run. And wound up in theaters, and boy, did it was terrific. 1988, terrific movie.
Ramon, he hung around for a while. He did Tortilla Soup, which is a very lovely movie. I think he did Money for Nothing, that John Cusack film. That was him.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. Good run.
All right, and then a couple of animated things here, just coming down to the end of the Warner Archive stuff. We got Looney Tunes Collector's Choice Volume 3. I wish they'd put all of these things out in a single box set instead of just kind of trickling them out one volume at a time, because there's so many great shorts here. But, they don't have all the shorts on Max. I know a lot of people subscribe to Max to see the shorts. You want to collect them on Blu-ray so they can't take them away from you at any point. Wonderful, wonderful shorts here. Tugboat Granny, total priceless classic. Wet Hair, Hare. They always use those puns. Really terrific. Hobo Bobo is classic. Honeymoon Hotel. Mexican Joyride, The Mouse on 57th Street, Quentin Quayle, Riff Raffy Daffy. Some of these just absolutely priceless shorts. They're all great. There's Roadrunner and Coyote and Elmer and all the rest of them. They're just terrific. A lot of great shorts. So Volume 3 of Looney Tunes Collector's Choice. And then we also have something I had never seen before. Superman original movie, Brainiac Attacks. This is from, what year is this? Is this like 1990? I think somewhere. It's a fairly recent Superman animated film. And what makes this are the voices. And I had to get over trying to figure out how I recognize the voices. And then at the end, I looked at them like, oh, yeah, of course. But the voice casting is excellent. The animation, it's not great. It's okay. They kind of rushed it. But it's a reasonably okay Superman versus Brainiac story. But great, great voices. Tim Daly, Powers Booth, Lance Hendrickson, Dana Delaney, Mike Farrell, Shelley Tavares, George Zunza. I mean, it's a great bunch of the acting talent is sensational, and that's what really elevates this thing. So Superman Brainiac Attacks, not great in terms of script and animation, but terrific voice casting. And then we got some multi-feature deals here. So first off, the Hangover trilogy. Yeah.
I only ever needed one Hangover movie.
I agree with you.
That first one was tolerable, kind of funny. Not speaking my kind of thing, but the fact that I have no idea.
It's I feel like there are some premises which just really, if you try to repeat it a second time, a third time especially, the credibility just evaporates.
Mm.
The idea that this would happen to these guys once is very funny.
Mm.
Right? Ken Jeong in that first film is just brilliant. He lets it all hang out, literally. But then once we get to a second one, now you have to suspend the disbelief. You're like, okay.
And frankly, I don't like you guys. Now you're idiots.
That's right.
First movie, some stuff just went down. Okay, that happens. So, now you're idiots.
Yeah.
and I don't even want to talk about this. So yeah, it's one of those kind of things.
By the time we get to a third one, but these things made money. I just anyway.
Yeah, boys will be boys kind of things. And look, made real careers, I think. For Cooper, Galifianakis, and Ken Jeong at least.
No doubt. Got a silent classics double feature from Warner Archive: The Boob and Why Be Good. So there are a lot. This is really kind of sort of interesting. So one of these was made by MGM, the other one was made by First National, both of whom wound up having their libraries fall in with Warner Brothers. And so it is interesting that Warner Brothers is releasing two films that were not Warner branded at the time. So if you know that going in, it's a little bit more interesting because William Wellman, who did the Boob, is more known as a war guy, right? He's a war veteran, and he directed Wings in 1927, the first Academy Award winner. And this is not quite his thing. It's a spoof. It's not, it's all kind of dealing with bootleggers and prohibition, and you kind of feel like this is a guy who's been hired to do something. He has talent, but he's not quite in his right vein. So it is historically kind of interesting. Why Be Good? It's sort of it's okay. It's got some synchronized sound effects on it, which makes it technically interesting. But otherwise, it looks like these are just two silent films that were orphaned. They don't justify being sent out alone, so they slap them together rather awkwardly on one Blu-ray for historical purposes. And I get that. But, again, neither one of them particularly remarkable, historically very relevant. Deep Blue Sea, The Long Kiss Goodnight, and Snakes on a Plane, all mashed together in one triple feature to showcase Samuel Jackson making really bad movies much better than they have any business being.
Rennie Harlin, kind of the back end of decent Rennie Harlin movies to Deep Blue Sea.
Both of these, Deep Blue Sea and Long Kiss Goodnight, both Rennie Harlin movies. Rennie Harlin now lives in China and makes movies in China. It's a very strange thing. I've never understood.
Now, The Long Kiss Goodnight, that's mid-career Rennie Harlin.
Yeah,
and
it's a Shane Black film. It's really a Shane Black film.
Yeah, you're sure. And Long Kiss Goodnight is just one of my favorite films. It's a terrible film, but I love it. Gina Davis, Sam Jackson playing that detective, and I just love that movie.
Look, and truly, these are movies where, especially Snakes on a Plane, which is on here just to push this thing as far over the edge as it can go. Let's be honest, every single one of these movies, if not for Sam Jackson, would not work. Now, Long Kiss Goodnight would still probably work to some degree. It wouldn't be as good. Deep Blue Sea, there is no and this movie is Stellan Skarsgård and Thomas Jane and Michael Rappaport, LL Cool J. It's got a real cast, right? But for some reason, nobody is ever able to float this thing until Sam Jackson shows up, and somehow he picks everybody up and just says, "Get the hell on my shoulders, and we're going to have some fun."
He elevates it. And look, Deep Blue Sea. Yeah, look, I guess there's 5 or 6 people out there. Was it 1999 or something like that?
Yeah.
That haven't seen it. His big moment in the Deep Blue Sea is just absolutely outstanding.
It really is.
It's just wonderful. And there you go, And hey, Snakes on a Plane? Oh, wow. Yeah.
And by the way, we should point out that Sam Jackson now officially holds the title that Joe Pesci used to hold. You know what that is, right?
No, which title is it?
The record of the person who has appeared in the most number of movies that have made $100 million or more.
Oh, really? Yeah, I do remember that about Joe Pesci because all those lethal weapons.
That's right. That used to be Joe Pesci. It was those lethal weapons and a bunch of other stuff. I mean, it was like somehow Joe Pesci had wound up in all these movies. I mean, and you would have thought, oh, it's got to be Tom Cruise. No, it's Joe Pesci. That's why that was like such a great bit to use at parties and trivia. You're like, who's been? Oh, Tom Cruise. Nope, Joe Pesci. Joe Pesci. And you go down the line, you're like, holy cow, Joe Pesci's been in a lot of big movies.
I want somebody to look at too. I want somebody to run both of them, Sam and Joe, against Joey Pants. Joey Pantaleone. I think somebody hasn't brought Joey Pants into that. Dude, Joey Pants goes back to the 70s.
You're right.
And the movies are big. He's in the new Bad Boys. He's in that again. So I don't know. I think if he's not in the top 3, I would be extremely surprised.
Yeah. And then lastly, on the Warner front, got a couple of DVDs, remastered deluxe edition of the original animated The Hobbit, which is perfectly fine. This is a Rankin Bass production. They all the people who did Santa Claus is Coming to Town and Frosty the Snowman and all that, they decided to try to take a swing at doing The Hobbit, and they do a pretty darn good job. Romeo Miller, who wrote all those original, Little Drummer Boy and Santa Claus is Coming to Town and all those originals, he does a really pretty decent screenplay here, a really good adaptation. It's obviously not fully faithful. It's not, brilliant or anything, but Orson Bean does a wonderful.
John Huston, great voice again.
Otto Preminger, Hans Conried, who did tons of stuff for Rankin Bass. So it's that's not. I wish it was on Blu-ray, but it's not. It's DVD, but still worth having. And the picture of Dorian Gray with the late George Sanders. Very, very sad demise there, and a respectable adaptation of that very legendary story. Angela Lansbury looking young and absolutely stunning. Peter Lawford. Good solid film. The picture of Dorian Gray, but wish that were also on Blu-ray. Where do we go next? We got some TV. We got 4K.
Let's bump over. There are only a few 4Ks. Let's bump over there real quick, I think.
Yeah, and it's mostly a collection of classic horror and exploitation titles from Severin, who is now going hard into the paint on 4K, which I find fascinating. It's 4 of these, including Lucio Fulci's The Devil's Honey.
Yeah.
I mean, this is kind of a nasty, sleazy, icky, naughty film, but it's on 4K. Tim Cogshell, is there a 4K audience for a film this nasty?
Look, this is that mid 80s, probably 86, 87.
86.
And I got to tell you, they had turned the Da Vinci, so to speak, up, and the blood was dripping. It's that era when the blood was actually red, so actually, if you're into this, you got to be into it in the first place. But if you're into this, the colors are popping, and on that 4K, they're going to be super popping. The blood, the palette is fantastic.
It is nasty, sexy, dirty, bloody, gnarly, and it's if you know Lucio Fulci, it's everything you would expect. We also have Cathy's Curse, which I had never seen before. I was totally unfamiliar with this, but this is a 1976, very, very 70s era, creepy, like evil child movie, pre-Omen, because the Omen was the following year, wasn't it? 77, 78?
Yeah. But it's pre. It's post Village of the Damned, with all those little creepy kids.
Yes.
But it's pre Exorcist, that first Exorcist.
It's Exorcist.
It's after that, 73. After the Exorcist, but it's before the Omen. Okay, yeah. It lives in that spot. It's a creepy little movie, dude. I remember this movie from back in the day. Eddie Melon movie. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, This has all kinds of nasty stuff in it, evil dolls, and it has the director's cut and the R-rated release. I don't think they know they make a whole lot of difference. It takes place in 1947, and it starts in 1947, and then it flashes forward to the 1970s, and it's this. The brother of a girl who was, I'm not going to get too much into it, but there's a car accident, and then it's with a fallout from the car accident decades later, and this family, and it's Cathy's curse.
Whatever that Kodak is that they're using back then, they're filmmakers now. They're filmmakers now who go to all ends to get that look. Back then, the films just looked that way.
I know.
Now it's like, what can we do to get that look? And I'm like, back then they just ran the film to the camera. Yeah.
So in 1979, they made this hilarious Italian horror film. It's not. I wouldn't really call it a giallo film. It's just a monster movie. The Great Alligator.
Yes.
And boy, that alligator is great. It's like the Italians said, let's just do Jaws with an alligator, which we did here too. Because I was in, Alligator 2. I'm an extra in Alligator 2. I'm very clearly seen in the wrestling scene in Alligator 2. Camera goes right on me. I'm wearing a double-breasted suit that does not fit me very well at all. Thought it did at the time, but anyway, no, it's I have.
They were cut. They were cut big at the time, and you were ridiculously skinny.
Yeah, but anyway, The Great Alligator.
Hey, Barbara Bach, Mel Ferrer, and it was a thing, at the time. Yeah, there were alligators, piranhas, there's something in the water that was going to kill you right up to the Spielberg put that big ass shark in the water.
What I love more than this movie, the movie is not very good, but, yes, the 4K is there to just show off how rich the film stocks were at the time. And what I love is the artwork that is on the back of this. It should have been the artwork on the front, but I think they were afraid that they might get kicked out of Amazon or something if they use this as the front artwork. But Tim, look at that. It's I mean, it is an alligator's gaping jaws with a nude woman lying in the mouth.
It's just fantastic. That's the poster.
That's the poster. It's just absolutely hilarious. And the last of these Severin titles, Butcher Baker Nightmare Maker.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. Butcher Baker Nightmare Maker from 1981. Something happened from the 70s to the 80s in terms of these films. And I've never quite been able to explain it to people. Do you have a way of like, when we talk about the slasher, gore, horror movies, monster movies of the 70s, the exploitation stuff, and then what they became in the direct-to-video era of the 80s, those AFM films. What changed? What was the shift?
They definitely got, giallo notwithstanding, they definitely got to be more salacious, more sex.
There it is.
Like that. And this is William Asher. William Asher is like, Beach Blanket Bingo and stuff, in the 60s. And by the 80s, this is
William Asher directed I Love Lucy.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, because my daughter, as we all know, is obsessed with I Love Lucy. Dude, I got to tell you this. I'm going to take an aside. Do you know what here? So first of all, just for security, there's a whole thing, wait till 8, which is you wait until 8th grade to give your kid a cell phone, right? That's the new thing. So we haven't given her a cell phone. She's 11. She's starting middle school, but we did give her an Apple Watch so that she can text us, she can do voice to text thing like, I'm waiting to be picked up, or, are you late? We can text her this traffic. I mean,
right, contact.
Security. Yeah, and we can basically get a sense of where she goes and if she's, on the move. So she has basically all 180 episodes of I Love Lucy memorized. Like the titles, the episode order, the whole thing. So my wife and I, we were, middle of the day yesterday, we get a text from her. She says, it's snack time at school, so she can be on her watch. And she texts us and she goes, "Can you check and see what episode of Lucy is on Pluto? I'll bet it's Lucy Raises Chicks." And my wife and I look at each other and we're like, "Is she kidding?" Like, what? Like, what are the odds? No. And we turn it on Pluto. Son of a gun. Lucy and Ethel chasing chicks around the floor of the Connecticut house. And we're like, how did she know that? And she just counted from what she saw that morning in her head. She's like, oh, well, and I bet by snack time, it'll be Lucy Raises Chicks.
Because they're doing it. And you know what? It's just doing the math. The episodes are X number long. They go in order. This is how much time has gone by. This is where we should be. It's insane. Fantastic.
It is insane. We have a Lucy savant on our end. Anyway, how did I even get into that? Oh, William Asher directed all those I Love Lucy's.
Yeah.
And then Bewitched. And, and for some reason he Butcher Baker, Nightmare Maker, which makes no sense at all. In 1981, I guess times were hard.
Well, it was the time Susan Tyrell was and Jimmy McNichol, younger brother of the actual
Chris McNichol,
acting McNichol.
Yeah. Well, anyway, this is a very strange. Bo Svensson is a heavy here, as he often is. Bill Paxton, I think, was like maybe 20 or 21 when he made this, even that. It's kind of a nasty film. It doesn't really work, but it is very much an atypical film of its moment. It's 2 discs. You got a bunch of extras on the second disc, interviews galore. So, I mean, I guess from a historical standpoint, we could probably say that Butcher Baker, Nightmare Maker is a significant film. Just don't expect to be scared or necessarily horribly entertained by it. Mm-hmm. Lastly here from Shout Select, beautiful 4K of Rolling Thunder.
Oh, wow.
Right. A 1977 film, somewhat forgotten, but, co-written by Paul Schrader. Very much a Paul Schrader kind of movie, directed by John Flynn, who's mostly forgotten. But this was done for AIP, for Sam Arkoff's AIP. And it is a after Taxi Driver. It's one of his follow-ups to Taxi Driver. And so as a result, it kind of sits in the shadows of Taxi Driver, is a little bit forgotten. But honestly, it's really a pretty darn good film.
Woody Gould and Paul wrote this. I actually know Woody Gould, but Haywood go way back in the day. This is it's 77, so it's that period, a couple of years after Nam.
Yeah,
and this is a part of that early, what would become a run of about a decade of films.
Yes,
that had hooks and features. Cats who were in Nam, out of Nam, and things that happened in the United States because of their time or while they were in Nam. This is one of the early ones from that.
Yeah,
that would push us right on through, Platoon,
the Deer Hunt and the Deer Hunter. Deer Hunter came out just a
Apocalypse Now. All of this is an early one of those. These guys should have come home.
Coming home.
I'm coming home. Yeah. I guess you could include those first Rambos, that first Rambo, and
you probably could.
That would be in there too. So
First Blood for sure.
Yeah, man, this movie has that scene where they do what they do with William Devane's hand.
Tommy Lee Jones and William Devane make a great tandem here as a couple of guys who've, got all the scars of the war and they're coping with them. And Tommy Lee Jones, he became kind of a caricature of himself at a certain point in the 80s. But he really, some of his performances here in the 70s, very, very sensitive, very nuanced. Really very strong film. So anyway, I do think this is a sharp movie. Thrilled that Shout has put it out in a 4K. I think that shows a lot of respect for the period. Notice all these films we're talking about here today, they're all 70s into the early 80s. Mm-hmm. Like they really are from a moment when the film stocks were just rich and they have a real texture and grain to them. And you're putting that on 4K, I think shows a lot of respect for that moment. So I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. I appreciate that. Let me grab a few things here from Milestone. Just make quick mention of this because this, as long as we're talking about important films, there's some really important stuff here. Martin Scorsese presents The Edge of the World, which of course he would because Talma Schoonmaker is Scorsese's editor, and she was married to Michael Powell. And this is a forgotten Michael Powell film that has now been released by the Milestone Cinematheque Collection and BFI. And it is a wonderful movie. Michael Powell, just, usually paired with Emmerich Pressburger, their classic movies of the 30s and 40s. But this from 1937 is just a straight up Michael Powell movie, and it is purely wonderful. Shot entirely on location in the Shetlands. So beautiful. And that was not a thing in 37. You shot on stages and you shot on backlots. So Michael Powell going to the Shetland Islands, which are not the most hospitable place to shoot. I mean, it's cold and windy all the time. It's going to give you sound problems. If you look at all of that in hindsight as to what was accomplished, it's really quite extraordinary. It's a real landmark film. And, the Shetlands are up there kind of, north of Scotland and in the middle of the North Atlantic. And this is just a wonderful, wonderful kind of melodrama, human, small scale melodrama. And it feels very Bronte-esque. And I just think it's an absolute wonderful look at these two families and all the politics between them. It's fantastic.
We always talk about social realism, or in terms of those sort of kitchen sink dramas of the late mid '60s. And I'm thinking of Ken Loach, too. I think we were talking about retiring him, Peter Weir, those guys. Ken Loach has a movie. He says it's his last movie. And Michael Powell did all kinds of movies, but a movie like this really sort of suggests that social realism that we it's about a dying fishing community. Yeah, and that's in the people who don't want to go to the mainland. They want to stick it out. Just like those dying coal communities and dying. It's just beautiful stuff. Gorgeous black and white.
Yeah, totally, absolutely.
Hey guys, time to get in on the action for the biggest moments in basketball with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Just select 2 or more players. Pick more or less on their projections, place your entry, and win up to 100 times your money. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit of up to $100. Just download the Prize Picks app and use the code GET100. That's code GET100 on Prize Picks for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more. Pick less. It's that easy.
Beautiful stuff. Beautiful stuff. Another wonderful Milestone Cinematheque release is A Spanish Dancer, which is a Herbert Brennan film with Paula Negri, one of the great silent stars of all time, and Antonio Moreno, a kind of a forgotten silent star. This is from 1923, has a brand new score, brand new silent orchestral score by Bill Ware, which is beautiful. And what a fantastic transfer this is. I mean, it really, really restores the film. It's sparkling, it's crisp, it's just perfectly tinted, and it has all the richness that you want out of a restoration of a silent film. Almost a nitrate kind of a sheen to it. It's fantastic. It's absolutely beautiful. So if you have a great TV, this will absolutely show off all of the nuances of the TV. Paula Negri was a huge silent star
and sex symbol.
One of the
first movie sex symbols, that dance that she does, and she's just astounding. She lived until 1987. She had a very long life. Did she
really? She lived that long?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Born in 1897. So,
Oh my gosh. Well, good for her. Good on. She saw the whole history of the movies.
Yeah.
And this is also also noteworthy because it's one of the early efforts by James Wong Howe, who made his mark really as a sound era cinematographer, but he started in the silence, and this is just beautiful. And it's a period romance. It's got a lot of kind of swashbuckling moments in it, but so it's very much a movie of its moment. But boy, you really, really see the star power on display here. It's terrific, really terrific.
Yeah.
And then 3 here from Flickr Alley. Flickr Fusion has French Revelations, which is Fanfare d'Amour and Mauvaise Graine. Otherwise known as Fanfare of Love and Bad Seed. These are from the 1930s, mid-1930s. Just a couple of great 1930s era French films. What is significant about Mauvaise Graine, Bad Seed, is it is the French film that was directed by or co-directed by Billy Wilder. So yeah, it's really nice to see Billy Wilder, working up, plying his trade here, and there are seeds of his future movies here as well, and I won't tell you what they are. But it's very, very interesting. You're like, oh, he's kind of working out, this idea and that motif and that theme. And you can draw a straight line from Mauvais Grain all the way to Billy Wilder's great Hollywood classics. It's fantastic. And then the reason that Fanfare d'Amour is on here is also for a Billy Wilder reason, because that was the film that inspired Some Like It Hot. So a lot of people don't, which is also now a big Broadway hit, which they've changed a little bit. But it all begins in this 1935 French film directed by Richard Potier. So you're learning a lot about Billy Wilder's future career by watching these two films. And then lastly, there is Foolish Wives, which was they allegedly, and they even put it right on the cover of the box here, the first real $1 million picture. So
Stroheim,
from 1922. That's right. Stroheim, who, what was the famous quote that he said is like, "Why are you making the actors wear period underwear? No one will know." And his answer was, "But I will know." I don't know how true that is, but it's a great story. So, yeah, Foolish Wives from 1922, long movie, big von Stroheim epic, but very expensive film. They advertised it as the first $1 million movie. I don't know if it was, but boy, they did a wonderful job restoring it. It's 4K restoration on Blu-ray here, and it was originally screened at MoMA. And for good reason. I mean, it's quite a movie with a ton of bonus material, comparing the restoration from before and after, and looking into the whole process of it, and whether it really was a first $1 million picture, and how it was made, and on location with Stroheim. It's pretty terrific. So, Foolish Wives, wonderful 1922 von Stroheim film. And then lastly, we're going to get a lot more of these volumes, so start collecting them. Flicker Alley, Laurel and Hardy, Year One, the newly restored 1927 Silence. If you've never seen Laurel and Hardy, you've got to start with the Silence, because to understand why they were so funny in their sound films, you have to start with the Silence and realize that they are basically silent comedians who learn to talk. Just really funny, super funny stuff. Audio commentary here for each of the films by Randy Skretvet. I'm mutilating his name, so I apologize for that. But yeah, these are just hilarious shorts. They're all really super funny. And it's 2 discs, and you just got to appreciate how amazing these two guys were. Just one of the all-time great comedy teams. All right, Tim, where do we go next?
Well, what do you think? You want to do some new movies?
Yeah, let's hit some new movies.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Dream Scenario, which was a Nick Cage movie. If you have it there, which was a Nick Cage movie that I thought might have been a part of the, Oscar discussions
I thought so too. Season. I thought he'd be in the mix. I thought he'd really be in there. And it wound up being just Cillian Murphy and Paul Giamatti in a 2-man race. And then by the end, it was just Cillian. That was, he kind of owned it. And Nick Cage fell out of that conversation. Why?
I think maybe it might have something to do with it. Look, the movie, which I liked a lot, by the way, Christopher Borghelli, is that the way you say his name? And this really sort of interesting
Borgli, I think.
Borgli, Christopher Borgli. Really sort of interesting movie about this guy. He's a regular guy. He starts appearing in people's dreams. Yeah, he's not doing anything in their dreams, but he's in them. And this, at first it's his family, and then it just starts to be this sort of worldwide phenomenon of this regular professor guy just showing up in people's dreams, doing nothing whatsoever. And we sort of move into this movie that's, sort of an interesting sort of exploration of several things, including to some extent the notion of cancel culture, because eventually he does something in someone's dream.
Which he didn't do in real life, but he did it in the dream.
He did it in the dream. And the culture responds to that in a particular sort of way. And I thought that this was a very clever way of exploring all of that.
It is a very smart, clever movie, and very interesting in what it does. Cage is, if you think that Nick Cage has just become kind of a parody of himself, no. He can still act. The boy can still turn in a performance like nobody's business, and he does here. And it is a really, really difficult thing that he does, because he's balding and he's a professor and he's all kind of, not very charismatic, and he has all these issues. And so he really, really kind of dresses himself down to an incredibly sympathetic place. And then he takes the character to a very unsympathetic place, and then he has to bring it back to a sympathetic place again. It's really interesting. Yeah. But I do love what it says about the nature of celebrity and our obsession with celebrity, especially empty celebrity, unjustifiable social media celebrity. If you think about it, it's really an analog way of being a social media influencer. He just shows up in people's dreams. He could just as easily have showed up on their TikTok feed.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just even that whole sequence.
Doing nothing. Nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That whole sequence in the film that sort of speaks to some of that, Anyway, I thought it was very, so I hope people will check it out. Anything interesting on that disc? Any sort of commentary by Nick or anybody? Nick did a really wicked thing where he read Telltale Heart at the South by Southwest. I was wondering if they might have put that.
So no, it has a featurette. It has an audio commentary by the writer-director Borgley, and then it's got deleted scenes, and that's it. So it's not a lot, but it is a good audio commentary. I didn't listen to the whole thing. I heard a little bit of it, but he goes deep. He goes deep. Yeah. He answers the questions. So he goes where you want him to go. Collector's edition of Lisa Frankenstein. Oh, Tim, what are we going to say about that?
Yeah, this didn't work for this is Diablo Cody.
Yeah. Directed by Zelda Williams.
Yeah, who is Robin Williams' daughter.
Yeah.
And a very gifted voiceover artist. I mean, gifted at the level of her dad. Just, look her up and see. Yeah. You've been listening to Zelda's voice for a very, very long time, and she's very, very good. Anyway, this movie, which it's set in the 80s, and it's shaped like all of those sort of 80s, who was it, John, what's his name? Made all those movies in the 80s, movies shaped like one of those,
Yeah.
But here's the thing, and it's about this girl who resurrects this poet and using, some sort of spell and the like, and all this sort of thing. And I'm not quite sure why it's set in the 80s. And I loved all those movies. John, what's his name? That did all those movies in the 80s.
Trying to remember.
Yeah, it's for whatever reason, I'm having a block on it, but I loved all of those movies. And I'm not sure. I would think that Diablo Cody would have loved all those movies, but she doesn't seem to love all of those movies in watching these movies, because she seems to be making fun of those movies and the people from Valley Girls and all of that. So I don't know. Anyway, other than that, this just wasn't particularly funny or romantic, because they go on a killing spree, and I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, exactly.
Why are you sending my kids on a killing spree? Anyway, this Diablo.
Yeah, it makes some odd missteps and doesn't really land its punches very, very intelligently. But I do like Catherine Newton. I'll say that. I think she's a wonderful actress, and I think she's a funny actress. Yeah. I hope we continue to see more of her, but in better movies. For some unknown, weird, godforsaken reason, Nickelodeon said, hey, you know what deserves a sequel? Good Burger.
Oh, man.
And they picked up the phone and they called up Kenan and Kel, and they said, we know you guys are all like grown up now and that you have other careers and that Good Burger is probably the last thing that you want to explore, but would you be interested in done? Yes, we're there. And for some reason, Kenan and Kel said, we're coming back. We're going to do Grown Up Good Burger sequel. And there it is.
I can only hope that they were offered some obscene amount of money. To which was this was actually pretty popular. Keenan, of course, has been on. I think he is now.
Yes, he is. You're correct.
Cast member,
the longest tenured SNL cast member in history. I don't know if that's anything to be proud of, because typically people go on to do other stuff. But apparently, and he has gone on to do other stuff. He's had a sitcom. He shows up in movies. But apparently, he loves it.
Yeah,
and that's the thing. Like everybody on SNL, they'll be like, "Oh, it's a meat grinder, man. It's a mess. It's hard. You use rehearsal, and you're working like 18-hour days, and it's just you're workshopping, and like they burn out." And Keenan, when you see interviews with Keenan, he's like, "Oh no, I love it. It's good."
I saw him in one, and he showed exactly what you said. They were talking about, and he said, and he looked at the camera. He said, "Not if you're funny." And I'm like, ooh. You know what, son? And you know what? Every week, funniest thing on that show, he's probably involved in it. Every week. Week. So, not if you're funny. So here they are, Good Burger 2.
Good Burger 2.
Yeah.
For Paramount Plus, no less.
Yeah. Well, now, look, this is what's interesting about it. I mean, this movie is whatever. But Dan Schneider, of course, was the Good Burger, creator of that and a whole bunch of other shows. One of the writers on this. And, of course, Dan and others have come into some scrutiny having to do with the way they show ran and the things that they let happen and did regarding shows like that, including this Good Burger show. And Keenan has had some things to say about that period and those shows and all of those people. I thought was very interesting. And this is all in relation to a documentary that's on one of the streaming services, about kids in the business, and you're lifelong here. Not only do you know kids in the business, you knew kids in the business when they were kids in the business, and me not quite that long, but all of these kids. Going back a good solid 35 years, when I was covering all those red carpets and junkets for all of these TV shows, and I would see these kids, and I would see these handlers. And I got to tell you, you should watch that doc.
Yeah. Well, as long as we're on a creepy subject, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
Yeah.
So this is a thing that we're getting into now, which is that certain things are entering the public domain. I have some very strong feelings about that, which I will make known soon on my Substack. If you haven't subscribed, come on over to the Hollywood Heretic at Substack, hollywoodheretic.substack.com. That's where I rant about things and subscribe. And if you want to read some of the paid stuff, that's behind a paywall. But a lot of stuff I post is not for pay. But it's I don't think things should be public domain, personally. I know that's controversial, but I kind of feel like, if I build a building to take care of my posterity, that never goes into the public domain. If I make a movie, it does, and that discourages people from making movies and from writing books and things that can sort of take care of their families. And Winnie the Pooh really should never have been the subject of a horror slasher movie. Thanks to public domain law. I don't think that's what the idea was. It wasn't like, oh, yeah, we need it to expire after 100 years so that people can turn your precious, iconic, culturally beloved character into something totally depraved. No, that was not the idea.
A.A. Milne, of course, is the long gone A.A. This and other things. I do recently one of the Mickey Mouses finally fell into public domain. The very, very early Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
Steamboat Willie style Mickey Mouse fell into public domain. You're right. It's a very controversial subject, and there's a whole set of reasoning behind it in both directions. Definitely, we need to consider the reality of things as they are today and adjust all of these laws to reflect the reality of the way these things work today.
Yeah. The story here is that Christopher Robin, when he grew up, he abandoned Winnie and Piglet and all the rest And now he's grown and he comes back with his fiancée in tow. And in his absence, all of his precious childhood characters, Winnie and Piglet and the others, they have become basically Jason and Michael Myers. And they have gone psycho in his absence. And the rest is just not pleasant. Yeah. But some people apparently love the subversive nature of that.
But generally speaking, though, I think this movie, because it's not particularly good, and it's not clever, it's not being subversive for a reason. It's just hacking and slashing and taking the Winnie the Pooh, characters and giving them chainsaws and having it. Now, I can imagine that there might be a way to be subversive, but purposefully subversive, using the Winnie the Pooh dynamic. But this isn't, and that I have no use for. But somebody who's more clever than these filmmakers, might have figured something out. But not these folks. They didn't. They're just crapping on Winnie the Pooh.
Couple of interesting low budget indie films on Blu-ray as well. One is Stand with an exclamation point at the end, which takes place in 1919, but it is reflecting obviously on the current crisis in Russia and Ukraine. It's sort of like history's repeating itself. It's a Romeo and Juliet tale set in Canada. Dealing with refugees from Ukraine, and Russia is on the warpath there again, and it is meant to sort of focus on what is happening in the here and now, and to that degree, it's interesting. It cuts corners a lot with its budget, but it's worth checking out. Yeah. And Distant Tales is another one of those movies that was made kind of during and about the pandemic, with everybody in different places, and the idea is that this takes place in a kind of post-apocalyptic dystopian future where people can't meet face to face. And I'm thinking, well, that isn't a dystopian future. That was basically the last 3 years. Yeah, that was we just went through that. So anyway, Distant Tales is the film. Interesting, kind of well-intentioned, and it'll go down as part of a subgenre of pandemic-y movies. Yeah. Want to make a quick mention of this. We've done this in the past before, and where companies make movies that are almost identical, and the marketing for them is almost identical. So, I've got a company here, 101 Films, which has made two movies. One is The Shamrock Spitfire, and the other is Fortunes of War. They have workshopped these through a lot of very small festivals and whatnot. So here's the thing. They're both World War II movies. They are both, one is, ground based. Fortunes of War is on the ground, but it's got some aerial stuff in it. And, Shamrock Spitfire is the true story of Spitfire Paddy, who was a pilot, and, he was, in the Australian squadron and, Battle of Britain. And anyway, they're World War II movies. They're respectably made, they're not low budget, but they're not super high budget, but both of them use, Tim, I'm going to show you this. Both of them have the exact same font for their titles, and it's diagonal on the cover of both. I see. Diagonal font, right? And then we have on the back, it's a war shot, it's some text, and it's just plug and play. You know why? Why? Because they're designing this stuff with the AI now. Somebody's saying, give me a, and the AI is looking at the thing, and they're coming back, and not for nothing. That's been going on for even in the well before the AI. Yeah, and all of those films, those romantic comedies, would have the guy and the gal, and they'll be standing on that cover, and he'll have his arms crossed, and she'll be looking like, it's really so generic, but there it is. Oh, it's just disappointing. Yeah. Anyway, not terrible movies though. They're fine. They're fine. Those World War II planes, so they actually get them up in the air and they're flying them around and stuff. So they spend a few bucks on some jet fuel. Did you see Cobweb by chance, the Lizzie Kaplan thing?
I don't think I saw that. Let me see.
Yeah, you know what? Not a bad little psychological horror film, actually. This kind of came and went. This was a Lionsgate film.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Not bad at all. It's about this 8-year-old kid who hears this sound, this tapping sound, and it's driving him crazy, and he's just terrified of it. His parents are like, "What are you talking about? What are you talking about?" And from there, it goes sideways in just a totally brilliant way. I mean, really a smart little psychological horror thriller. It's very, very well made, well directed, well put together all around. A nice little movie called Cobweb, Lizzie Kaplan and Anthony Starr, Starr. So check that out if you want a more sophisticated, intelligent thriller chiller for a dark evening sometime. The Persian version from Sony Classics was supposed to be kind of a little award contender, I think, for a minute. And it's one of these, it wants to be my big fat Greek wedding with a Persian family. I'm not sure that it comes anywhere close to it. Did you get a chance to look at this?
Oh, yeah. It was, my big fat Greek wedding. Going back a long ways, it
wants to be an Iranian-American big fat Greek wedding is what it wants to be.
Let us show you our culture and how we love it. And it's beautiful.
Our wacky immigrant family.
Yeah. And how it's like your wacky family. So.
Yeah, I mean, and that's quite literally what it is. But it still feels a little too derivative. It's well intentioned. I think Mariam Keshavarz, who wrote and directed it, has a future. But try to go a little bit more into do something a little different. I mean, some fun moments.
I imagine that in the Iranian and the Persian community, this is one of those films that they adore, and that everybody's it's got to be. I'm almost certain of it.
Let's talk about Priscilla for a second. Sofia Coppola's film that was supposed to be a big deal, and it got no love in award season from anybody at all. All. And it had a good festival run in, right? People were writing nice reviews coming out of, I think it was Venice and Toronto. And I mean, it was getting some good love. It's Sofia Coppola. It's coming on the heels of Elvis, except it's about Priscilla. It's like the woman's point of view. Why did this film not get more love?
Yeah, look, there's not. So I saw this film. Interesting. The Kaylee Spaney, who's in this film, plays Priscilla, is the young one, is in the current Alex Garland film Civil War. Which is interesting because she actually made Civil War before she made this film. So this film.
I don't think I knew that.
It has that whole run, and it should have really launched her career, but her career started being delayed because it failed to launch because of this. But now, I think Civil War will kind of take care of it. Look, one of the things it is that I'm sorry, but to the extent that the events in Priscilla Presley's life are interesting. They are interesting as they are connected to the events in Elvis Presley's life. Mm-hmm. If you take Elvis Presley out of the moments, any moment of Priscilla Presley's life, that's a moment that I don't care about. I only care about the moments of Priscilla Presley's life that are directly connected to Elvis Presley's life. I don't mean to be mean about that, but it's literally true. It's because otherwise, why am I talking about you at all? You're a woman who I will have never heard of, who would have lived a perfectly lovely life, I'm sure, but whom we would not be making a movie about because she wasn't married to Elvis when she was like a baby or whatever the hell it was.
Interesting.
So to my mind, that's what it is.
Very, very good point. That had never occurred to me, but I think you got a point. I think you got a good point. Well, it's got a digital copy on it. It's from Lionsgate. A24 normally does a great job of pushing their films to awards contention, but didn't happen for that one. If anybody saw the Ernest and Celestine animated film a few years ago, they've done a sequel to it. This is Ernest and Celestine, A Trip to Gibberitia.
Yeah.
It feels, it's nice storybook animation. They're still doing that really very sweet storybook animation. The first film, which got an Oscar nomination, was really very charming and kind of fresh. This feels a little belabored. Did you have a chance?
Yeah. No, we did back to that. Well, now there are a few of these. Because it was a television series, and they sort of like are what they are. But this is not. There's not enough material here. The first, the 20 whatever it was, film 12, I guess, right? The one that got the Oscar. That film carried the weight of a feature. There's not enough material here for a feature. So yeah.
Yeah, the idea here is that Ernest and Celestine is a bear and a mouse who are friends.
Yes.
It's a cute little animal friendship deal, and they go back to Ernest's homeland and find that music has been banned, and so it's how do we bring the music back? And suddenly I started having all kinds of American Pie flashbacks. So it means to be sweet. They're trying very hard, but they keep kind of trying to invent things that make it work, and it doesn't quite. A Good Person with Morgan Freeman and Florence Pugh came out some months ago. We were not furnished this necessarily to review, so we are covering it many, many months after the fact.
Yeah.
Because a friend of mine reached out to me and said, "Why haven't you covered this? This is amazing. This is my favorite film of last year." And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
So I went back. This is a great movie. This is a terrific movie.
Yeah, so very strong film. Very Zach Braffy.
Very Zach Braffy. That's the thing. Zach Braff wrote and directed it. It's this best film since Garden State. You've got Florence Pugh, who's amazing. You got Morgan Freeman, who's a legend. Why did this not catch fire? This is another one of those award season things. I'm like, why didn't this become a thing?
Mm-hmm. Well, again, there's a tragedy at the center of the film. It is a film about two people in mourning and going through a very, very, Morgan Freeman is the father of the fella that Florence Pugh is engaged to. There's going to be a car accident. People are going to be killed, and there's going to be questions of culpability.
Yeah,
and internal. It's so heavy stuff. So maybe just that, but it doesn't mean that it's not a very, very, very good film exploring these extremely difficult sort of issues. With all of these folks have really sort of difficult backstories. Morgan Freeman was a cop, but he's also a cop that used to drink. Very interesting stuff.
We also have Journey to Bethlehem, which was a musical from last year, a Christmas-themed musical with Antonio Banderas playing Pontius Pilate. It's just a strange movie. It's not bad. It's just strange. The music kind of is very anachronistic, but it's very family friendly. So, if you want to see a great musicalized Birth of Jesus movie, working its musical charms on a very limited budget, with colorful costumes and, that's again, super family friendly. You could do worse.
It'll work into the canon of Christmassy.
Yeah.
It'll become a part.
It's Antonio Banderas who just kind of sticks out. You go like, that is such odd casting. But, John Woo is back making American movies. And I'm not sure he should have. I hate to say that because I love John Woo. I grew up on John Woo. I treasure all of my John Woo Hong Kong movies. I even like a lot of the American stuff once he came over, Hard Target and, Face Off. And he was doing some good work here. Mission Impossible 2. And then Hollywood fell out of love with him and he fell out of love with Hollywood. He went back and started making a lot of big, epic Chinese movies like Red Cliff and stuff like that.
Movies, yeah.
And now he came back and he made this thing called Silent Night.
Oh, yeah.
Which feels like a half-sincere imitation of what he used to do. And it's almost like, I mean, and he did it with the producer of John Wick, but it almost feels like he's behind the curve now. Like he's trying to keep up with John Wick movies, which were imitations and expansions on his movies. And I just don't know what to make of this, Tim. It's a very weird choice for him to come back and make a movie like this.
Yeah, and it feels like a movie from the middle '90s, late '90s.
It does, doesn't it?
Back when he was doing all that sort of stuff. And not for nothing. Stylistically, he hasn't really changed a lot in terms of over the course of these directors. They have these really sort of long careers. Some of them sort of like keep up in terms of style. Who just died not too long ago? Breakin.
Yeah.
Breakin was still was a very modern filmmaker for all of in all of his last films. This feels like a film that John Woo made in 1998.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. It does. Yeah. Well, anyway, it's too bad, but John Woo's still making movies, and I guess that's better than nothing. Better than nothing. Eileen, with Thomasin McKenzie and Anne Hathaway, another movie that just got away from everybody. Anne Hathaway's an Academy Award winner. Yeah. And for whatever reason, this just got very little attention. This is based on a book, which I've never heard of. And it takes place in 1960s in Boston. And it is a pretty gritty melodrama about this woman and her how do I do this without getting into any Thomasin McKenzie plays Eileen, the title character, and Anne Hathaway plays a woman on the staff of the prison where her father is being kept. Mm-hmm. And it's about the nuances of that friendship and where it goes, which I don't want to kind of reveal too much, but it's very interesting. It's very dark, and it's quite well written in this kind of circuitous. They're trying to call it. They're pitching it as a Hitchcockian noir. Hitchcock didn't make noirs, so that's kind of a dumb thing to say to begin with. It is definitely a quasi noir. But it is also I don't want to call it a psychological thriller. It's a psychological mystery, I guess, is maybe the best way to put it. But anyway, it's a very interesting film. I thought it would get a little bit more love at awards time, but no, didn't get any.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Why would somebody not? Why are some of these films falling through the cracks? Do we have too many films at awards time now? Is that the problem?
Well, and it might be. Look, there was a whole stack of films this past awards season. A lot of them, indie films, but very the Salt of the Earth, excellent Earth Mom, excellent movies. The Inspector, and there were just a lot. Yeah. And it seems like the organizations want to get to a few films quick. And it seems like there's this rush to these 2 or 3 or 4 films, and those are going to be the 2 or 3 or 4 films that we talk about. Obviously, you have these big movies, your Oppenheimer's, your Barbies, or whatever. And then we're going to all agree on Poor Things, or Everything Everywhere All at Once, or Minari, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. When another dozen films, every bit as good. But for whatever reason, we have not all agreed on that film. We've all agreed on this one, and that's the one we're going to do. And it really is, I don't know. It becomes a thing of where everyone just sort of like follows the leader.
Very frustrating. Very frustrating. We got to get out of this rut. It's a rut. Let's do some TV and some steelbooks, and then I will let you go, and I'll wrap everything up with a few anime. We got a bunch of anime in. Finally got a chance to get a look at some of it, and I will wrap things up with a little anime segment. But the steelbooks, We got 3 here: Anaconda and Hollow Man.
Oh, Hollow Man! I love that movie.
Yeah, Hollow Man with Kevin Bacon, probably and Elizabeth Shue, probably one of the better Invisible Man attempts in the last, I don't know, 30 years. And then
and the Paul Verhoeven film, because Paul's kind of gone, but Paul was still at the top of his game for that one.
Yeah, it's very effective, and it kind of reinvents the genre a little bit. And then Anaconda with a very young Jennifer Lopez, Jon Voight, Ice Cube, Eric Stoltz. With the worst Anaconda I've ever seen in a movie. I still think this movie is ridiculous, but you know what? I guess it's got kind of a weird cult following now. I don't really understand it. Is it J-Lo? Is she the reason it's got a cult following?
Well, you got J-Lo and your boy Cube in the movie, so that's interesting, all right there. But J-Lo for sure, young J-Lo was something to see, man. And Jack Epps, who I think is Jack is also Top Gun, right? He's one of the writers on this.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, I think Jack was one of the writers on that.
One of the writers on this?
On Anaconda.
You're right. Jim Cash and Jack Epps.
Yeah.
My gosh, it looks like they wrote the original draft. Holy cow. Isn't it crazy? Cash and Epps.
Cash and Epps. It's a whole. So it's sort of like a reach back to an era where these guys, you had these kind of writers who could do these kind of movies, and it's kind of Luis. What did he do? He did The Specialist. The director.
Luis Loza.
Luis Loza. Yeah, he was. I think, is he that Kurt Russell? Wyatt Earp movie. Is that Luis?
I don't know.
Maybe not. Maybe that's not Luis, but I think he might be that Kurt Russell. Anyway, all these guys, all these guys are gone, man. None of these guys are working anymore.
And then we've got Amélie, anniversary release on Steelbook, which is, Jean-Pierre Jeunet's wonderful, charming Amélie. Just one of those most delightful French films with Audrey Tautou and Mathieu Kassovitz. This is a classic film, beloved film. It's now 25 years old, or almost 25 years old. I know, it's crazy, right? Anyway. Just terrific. A little bit, some extras here, commentary with Jean-Pierre Jeunet, featurette looking back, and 11 behind-the-scenes featurettes. It's terrific. It's a wonderful, wonderful Steelbook. And then on the TV front, real quickly, we've got Fear the Walking Dead, the complete 8th season. I think this thing is on fumes, but, they somehow keep dragging this story out for those who need more and can't get enough. And then Jack Ryan, the final season, and then there's also a complete series Blu-ray of it. Has this show worked? Did this really expand the Jack Ryan character in ways that we wanted or needed?
Well, look, you and I go back to the original incarnations of Tom Clancy's adaptations. Of the Tom Clancy adaptation, and we went through a few Jack Ryans, didn't we? We did. Who was Jack? We had Alec Baldwin. We had Harrison Ford. We had I think Ben Affleck was the Jack Ryan for a second. Yep. In the movies, in the big movies. So I suppose it's fair but I just never bought. I just never bought John as Jack Ryan.
I didn't really either.
I was okay with Ben. I was okay with Alec. I was okay with Harrison, but John Krasinski, I just never bought him. And maybe it's because I came to know him as that funny guy, and what was it? The Office, the American.
Yeah, exactly. Right? He made it hard to get away from that character.
Yeah, but particularly and become this character, because this guy, Jack Ryan's Jack Ryan, man. Jack Ryan's Harrison Ford. He might even be Alec Baldwin. He could even be Ben Affleck. He is not the guy from The Office.
Well, it's 30 episodes, 4 seasons, and I think that about is what it should have run. 4 seasons feels right for that. And then last on TV is The Lower Decks, season 4. I don't get it. Star Trek is a funny cartoon. Doesn't work for me, but I know people who love this. They feel like this is the Futurama version of Star Trek, which I didn't need. But
a lot of inside jokes. I don't need inside jokes. Star Trek jokes. That's okay. I'm okay.
Anyway, it's in 4th season now, so clearly somebody likes it. Somebody likes it. All right. Well, Tim, with that, we will call it quit this week. I'm gonna let you go, and then I'm gonna dovetail now into some anime stuff and just give people a few highlights onto what's new in the anime world. Some interesting business things have happened with anime titles, which have kind of switched. Some different companies have migrated to other companies and merged, and some things have happened. But anime continues to be a big performer in the world of DVD and Blu-ray.
Absolutely fascinating.
Otherwise, I think we're looking at a big summer. We'll be back in a few weeks, and we'll hopefully have some insights on things like Civil War, which I know we have both seen, and we'll have some thoughts that we can share at that time. And we will see everybody else then.
All right. See you soon, brother.
I'm going to cover some anime right now. I think a lot of stuff has changed in the world of anime in recent months. The Sentai library, which constitutes most of what we're going to be talking about today and what we do cover, has always been sort of the dominant library, but it then was purchased by AMC, whereas Section 23, which used to distribute it, was purchased by AMC Networks, and so now it is the Sentai label is its own label. Entirely its own label. Going to go through a few things that we're enthusiastic about, some things we're not so enthusiastic about, then some things that we are very enthusiastic about, and then a bunch of very special box sets. We're enthusiastic about Resefon, which is, I don't want to compare it too much to Ultraman, but this is the complete collection of Resefon, Sentai collection, basically about a kid who controls a mecha. He has the power to control a mecha, known as the Resefon. And it is a wonderful student wish fulfillment fantasy series along with the movie. It's the TV series and the movie. Wonderful animation. Also wonderful animation is The Tunnel to Summer, The Exit of Goodbyes, which is a lovely drama very oriented toward young adults, maybe even older, about the Urashima Tunnel, which is a phenomenon. It's not really science fiction. It's not even really fantasy. It's almost psychological, but it is certainly a fantastical phenomenon that connects you to the past and to other dimensions and your own sense of reality. And it's about loss, family loss, and how you restore a family. It is beautifully rendered, wonderful animation, very, very sharp. Then we have a bunch of stuff that's sort of set in the world of the travails of Japanese students. Not something that is terribly accessible. It's got a certain following. It's very genre specific. Go through this really quickly. Kubo Won't Let Me Be Invisible. Love Flops, Insomniacs After School, and season 1 of The Dangers in My Heart. All of these kind of sort of live in the same world, the travails of students and their issues at school. Very, very kind of the only one that's sort of a little bit above the others, Insomniacs After School, and that's only because it's all about their struggles and putting together their astronomy club. But otherwise, very, very, very narrow audience for most of this stuff. A little bit more enthusiastic about Redo of Healer. Not exactly for kids, this one. This is about a... there is a sexual abuse narrative to this, but it is still a fantasy, and it's, in sense of being a fantasy world, it has a lot going for it. But there is of course the hero's journey, all that usual Joseph Campbell stuff. It's all very formulaic. But the sexual abuse angle is one that people might want to be aware of. Don't let the kids necessarily watch it. Black Bullet is a little bit too close to the bone, I think, especially after the pandemic. This takes place in the aftermath of a pandemic, which has been devastating to mankind, a little bit, post-apocalyptic, dystopian, But then there's an angle that sort of dovetails into some kind of X-Men sort of things. How the people who are the virus that has caused all of this has created sort of a mutant generation of children. It takes a little while to get into, to sort of learn all the parameters of what's going on, but it is very well written. It's very well rendered, and that is the complete collection of Black Bullet. We've talked before about Peter Grill and the Philosopher's Time. This is a new release of that, the Super Extra Complete Collection. Contains uncensored material here, which we don't know necessarily how it would compare against anything else, but it is there. And then it has obviously some featurettes on here, actor interviews and promos and some making of material. So Peter Grill and the Philosopher's Stone, by no strange coincidence, has a title that should remind you of Harry Potter. Giant Beasts of Arse wouldn't go over well in the UK. Linguistically, that would mean something very, very, very different in London. Giant Beasts of Arse, ARS, and again, a fantasy series. The animation is stronger than the writing, but it certainly is well worth taking a look at. The Arse is the land that all of this takes place in, the sort of mythical, otherworldly land. We could call it a little bit like Asgard from Thor, from Marvel Comics. But, it's still the hero's journey. In the past, we've also talked about Tsurune. This is Tsurune, the movie, The First Shot. This is kind of a sequel to the original series from 2018-2019. The movie was made in 2022. It is a worthy follow-up. This is, about a Kyudo club at a high school, and if you've seen the series, you're going to completely vibe to it. If you haven't seen the series, it won't mean a whole lot to you. Tears to Tiara. Also something I think we have talked about in the past. This is a new complete collection release of it. It's based on a role-playing game, and so as such, it's a little bit doesn't quite register. It's got a lot of mythical amalgamations in it. You'll see a lot of bits and pieces of a lot of other materials, but it's again fantasy series, and if you're not a fan of the game, you will probably be able to enjoy it. If you're a fan of the game, the inability to kind of intercede and access some of the role-playing aspects of it would be disappointing. Otaku Elf. These are some of the better titles now. This is some of the stuff that is either really funny or really quite engaging. Otaku Elf. I don't know if it's meant to be funny, but it's based on a manga, and I actually find the animation very, very funny. It has kind of these visual bursts that you don't expect, and it certainly seems to be deliberately funny in an almost kind of Pokemon Pikachu way. So Otaku Elf, recommended. Also, Urusei Yatsura, which is a fairly recent television series. This is seasons 1 and 2 together. The I don't even know how to get into the premise here. It's just it's a very, very bizarre comedy that it's like a science fiction comedy. And the creator of it certainly has a reputation for doing a lot of these kinds of similar things. It is, it's like there's an alien invasion, and then certainly in the first episode, it takes a left turn, and there's this game of tag, and they call this an interstellar rom-com in the titling on the back. I don't know that I would call it a rom-com. It's more like an interstellar animated sitcom, maybe a better way of putting it. But it certainly has its bizarre, strange charms. The titles of some of these series are always off the wall. People know, anime series come up with some unbelievably long, convoluted, very strange titles. We got a couple of them here. This may take the cake. The literal title of this show is I've Somehow Gotten Stronger When I Improved My Farm-Related Skills. That is literally the title. It's based on a manga, fairly recent, and it's incredibly peculiar, as the title would suggest. It is, quite literally what it describes. It's farm comedy combined with monster fantasy. So, if you're fighting monsters and you're growing farm fresh food, somehow the whole idea of farm fresh to table takes on a very, very different dimension. So just think about something that combines farming with like fantasy fighting of demons and monsters and dragons and everything else. That's what this is. Very strange. I've somehow gotten stronger when I improved my farm-related skills. Very bizarre. Akiba Maid War is... I wasn't quite sure where this was going initially. Then I figured out that it is basically about a bunch of young women who are employed as French maids, or at least they dress like French maids. And the world of maids then basically becomes the kind of a... It's either the Running Man or any of those other televised fight to the death movies. Let's say Running Man a little bit. Hunger Games might be closer to the mark. So yeah, let's say it's about imagine the Hunger Games with French maids. There it is. That's what Akiba Maid War is. We get more farming. With Farming Life in Another World. I don't know what it is. I don't know if they've lost farmland. I don't understand the obsession with farming, but two farming titles at the same time. Farming Life in Another World is based on a series of light novels and a manga that preceded this, and it is reasonably charming, but also reasonably funny in fits and starts, but otherwise very, very well animated. We also have the last two in this lineup. My Life as Inukai-san's Dog is if it weren't funny, it would be prurient. This is not. This is an uncensored edition of this. It is not hentai. People shouldn't be worried about that, but it is. It does kind of get a little bit risque, and risque in a Japanese pink movie kind of way. If you're familiar with the history of pink movies, this is kind of a PG-13 version of this, and this was fairly recent. This only aired, I think, last year. Really, it's about the transformation of someone into a puppy. And he's basically a puppy, and what is his life like as a puppy, relating to his human friends? Don't know any other way to describe it. And lastly, here before we get into the box sets, is a new Familia Myth special entry, part 2 of season 4. Is it wrong to try to pick up girls in a dungeon? This various series of this have been around forever. We have talked about this before. This is certainly in the same vein. I think if you pick this up, you are going to have no idea what's going on. This really is, this is season 4, part 2 of the 4th series, Familia Myth. You have to almost revisit everything before this to really kind of pick up on this and understand where it's going. This, it's a mythical world with gods, and you're not going to catch up with it if you just step into this particular entry. Now to the box sets. Rosen Maiden, we've talked about before. All 4 series of Rosen Maiden are here on 7 discs in a single Sente box set. I would definitely upgrade if you're a fan. This is the only way to have them. I don't believe they're going to make any more of these. A lovely box set of Chihayafuru limited edition box set. This is based on a very, very successful light novel series, and this is both series and the live action film adaptations are not on here. So this is both anime series without the live action adaptations. So it's not as complete as they would have you believe. This is, but it's a nice limited edition for the animated series. Here's the one I really want to get to. So Gotcha Man was most popular. I grew up on this as Battle of the Planets. It was completely recut and redubbed and redone in the United States, and never really, if you saw that, you didn't really understand the original Gotcha Man. You didn't sort of get the same sense. It was very simplified, made almost more into a superhero thing, which it is not necessarily. When you go to Gotcha Man, it's a much more nuanced and elaborate hero's journey. It is kind of, mecha and science fiction. It's all about fighting this international organization that's a little bit like, it's almost like a James Bond kind of thing, known as Galactor here. And the science ninja team are the only ones who can defeat them. And Gotcha Man really is sort of the heroic center of that team. So this is all 105 episodes of the TV series, plus Gotcha Man versus Turtle King, plus The Mysterious Red Impulse, plus Final Count 002, and Gotcha Man the movie. All of that together in one complete collection box set. It is terrific. If you are a Gotcha Man fan, no other way to go. That's the only way to go. It's a wonderful, wonderful box set. Himuto Maruchan R. Limited edition. Much bigger and thicker than it really deserves to be. This skews very, very, very young. This is really, if you're 8 years old, I think you're almost too old for this. And it's a little bit about, it's about kids. It's about being obsessed with junk food. I think it does translate a little bit. It feels like it appeals to sort of generalized student, classmate, junk food, the world in which they relate to each other that probably translates to all different cultures. So it's not as uniquely specific to Japanese school culture as a lot of these others, but it skews super, super young. A beautiful box set here. Holy cow, this might be the gem of the week. 5 films by Masaki Yuasa. Masaki Yuasa is one of the great anime masters right now, mostly known in the United States for Inu-Oh, which was a big deal in 2021. This is 5 of his films, his great, most celebrated films, and they are all absolutely superb. Inu-Oh is on here, as well as films that have preceded it. Mind Game from 2004, The Night is Short, Walk On Girl from 2017, Lu, L-U, Over the Wall from 2017 as well. Kind of amazing, 2 films in 1 year. And Ride Your Wave from 2019. The most amazing thing here is that there are 2 films from 2017, 1 from 2019, and 1 from 2021. That's 4 films in 4 years. Sort of extraordinary by any measure, and they're all really, really good. There are filmmaker commentators for all of these. There are scene breakdowns for all of them, featurettes and directors' interviews, and everything that goes all the way into the whole process of these films. It's really extraordinary. And there are English language dubs for at least for one of the films, The Night is Short, Walk On Girl, which I don't recommend anybody necessarily listen to. The voice casting is not particularly good, but the 5 films are superb. Yuasa is a genius and one of the great anime masters, and it's really an essential set to have. And something I'd never heard of before, Carole and Tuesday. This is a limited edition of Carole and Tuesday, and this is a 24 episode series that, along with a lot of extras and a booklet, and it's a really nice, splashy, weighty box set. It's worth getting your hand on if you are particularly attracted to the idea of this kind of. I mean, we've talked about this before. I think we have. It all takes place on Mars. Mars has been made habitable through terraforming in the future. And it's these two girls basically become kind of a two girl band on Mars, and that's basically it. It's a little bit of sci-fi, it's a little bit of music fantasy fulfillment, but it's got wonderful music, it's got terrific animation, and a ton of absolutely sensational extras on here. So it's great for fans. Not anime, but certainly in the anime world, is Spirited Away live on stage. So people may not realize that Hayao Miyazaki's first Academy Award, he just won his second Academy Award for The Boy and the Heron at the Oscars this year. His first Academy Award was for Spirited Away. And they did, in fact, turn it into a live stage production, which remarkably works. This is from G-Kids. And it's really, really well staged. It has some extraordinary kind of puppeteering work, very, very different from what you would normally see. It has just a wonderful, wonderful sense of Japanese stylization on it. And this was shot during the 2022 run at the Imperial Theater in Tokyo. So it is during COVID. Tail end of COVID, but nonetheless during COVID. So that makes it a little bit special as well. Directed by John Caird, who is a Tony Award-winning director. So Spirited Away live on stage, surprisingly good and fascinating. And then the very last one here is Metalocalypse, Army of the Doomstar. Metalocalypse has been around quite a while. This was made in 2023. And it's based on the Adult Swim series, which is not technically anime, but it is definitely anime inspired. So that's why I'm leaving it in here. This is a sequel to Metalocalypse: The Doomstar Requiem from 10 years ago. So I do recommend if you go take a look at Doomstar Requiem, because I've never seen Doomstar Requiem, and watching this I was thoroughly lost. It took me a minute and a little bit of internet research to kind of fill in some of the blanks. So don't do what I did. Definitely go ahead and grab the original. But it's it is definitely in the vein of mecha. It is a mecha series. And even though it is technically not anime, we can probably put it in that genre. It belongs there stylistically and artistically and thematically. And with that, we are done. A lot of great anime there. Hopefully, we'll be getting more as they ramp up production again on all this great stuff from Sente Library, and lots of really interesting anime titles that are being released literally this week in theaters, which will be on DVD and Blu-ray soon enough. We'll see you in a few weeks.